William holds the reins. The rogue Harry regrets wanting to return to the UK in vain. William exhibited so many acts of kindness and compassion towards his little brother Harry, and what did Harry and Meghan do? Well, they threw all of those acts of kindness and compassion right back in his face. He has had to deal with so many insults and attacks coming from his own brother and his brother's evil wife. And that's precisely why these reports that Harry is wanting to come back to the UK after divorcing Meghan are so surprising. For about 35 years, William was such an important support system for Harry. He really had his back. And Harry lashed out against his older brother and his brother's family in a very public way. Harry seems convinced that he really is such a special boy. He is so important. He's incredibly entitled. There is no way that he would be okay with laying low and being out of sight in the UK while his brother is king. But at the same time, it is impossible for him to rejoin the working royals and be on Buckingham Palace balcony again. I mean, can you imagine? Those days are long gone. It looks like Harry is doomed to spend the rest of his life in the US dreaming about what might have been if only other people had not been in the way. Well, I just hope that his victimhood is enough to keep him busy and warm at night until the very end of his days. I think that if William had his way, Harry would have been exiled a long time ago, but Charles is never going to do that. He's too guilt-ridden. He is holding on to this idea that Harry's going to somehow come back as a prodigal son, and that he's going to once again be adored by all the people because he is the wise and loving king who waited so patiently with open arms for Harry. Well, Charles, I'm afraid that is never going to happen. Even though I like Charles, I think that he has many good characteristics, I have to admit that emotionally he can be quite weak. After all, he said in the past that he doesn't like conflict, and that he doesn't want to get into a battle with Harry. Well, I mean, that's very selfish on his part, because he is only thinking about what is best for himself. He's not thinking about Harry. He just wants to play being king instead of being a responsible father and holding his son accountable for his awful behavior. That is, at the end of the day, one of the most important parts of parenting. But William has always seen the truth when it comes to Harry. His temperament is the complete opposite of his father. He is incredibly direct. He wants to face things head on. And unlike both the late Queen and now Charles, he doesn't believe in hiding things and covering stuff up. He wants the truth to come out, and he is not going to allow himself to be manipulated by Harry. But Charles, I'm afraid, is holding him back right now, so it looks like his hands are truly tied until he becomes king, or something snaps Charles out of this fantasy land that he's living in right now. Now, it seems like long life runs in the family, so unless Charles dies at a premature age, and that is not unbelievable if Harry keeps on bashing his father and causing him so much pain like he did the late Queen, but it still could be about 20 years or even more before William finally becomes king. Now, I think Charles is doing the right thing by ignoring the gruesome twosome. He is not giving in to their victim narrative. He's not taking the titles away. Instead, it looks like maybe he's quietly trying to ice them out. Now the coronation is finished, and so he doesn't have to worry about that. I think Charles has also decided to not invite them to any more royal events, and of course, he refused to renew the lease on Frogmore. They are gone, and I hope there's not going to be any more drama. I hope the king can have a chance to just get on with everyday business. Even so, it's obvious that the king is really stressed out by this whole situation. Honestly, I'm not sure that he has the emotional strength to deal with Harry's emotional and mental illness, so I don't think he's going to last as long as his mother did. He might end up succumbing to the stress of all this and pass away earlier than we would like. I mean, Harry did cause the Queen a lot of grief and pain in her last years. I'm afraid the king might be the king in name only, with William taking over most of the duties and decision-making behind the scenes. I think actually there's a good chance he's already doing that. And if Camilla passes away before he does, I don't think Charles is going to be able to handle that. He's already told his mother in the past that he could not live without her by his side because she is his support system, she is his rock, she is where he gets his strength from. And if William does become king sooner than we expect, he's not going to pander to Harry's little fits or his woe-is-me stories. He's going to set him straight immediately. He's going to force Harry to face the consequences for his behavior, and it looks like Charles is not going to be strong enough to do that. And if Harry and Meghan are somehow still married when William becomes king, I'm sure they're going to be exiled. William is not going to want to have anything to do with that evil Meghan Markle. He's not going to speak with her, and he's not going to accept any attempts from her to communicate with him. If this were way back when, maybe in the 1600s or something, he would have locked Meghan away in the tower. We would never hear from her again. But of course, this is the 21st century, and so it's not like he can do that. From what I hear, the tower is already filled with respectable residents, and William is not going to want to kick them out. Charles apparently is trying to do that with his brother Andrew, but I don't know if it's going to work. I think William would find a respectable place for Harry to live. He'd probably go back to Nottingham Cottage instead of Frogmore. I mean, he and Meghan, after all, foolishly spent $2 million of taxpayers' money renovating the place, and then they left immediately. And I think William would insist on those invisible children having a DNA test, and if it was discovered that in fact they came from surrogates as suspected, they would be immediately removed from the line of succession. And you know, the milk and honey that once flowed so freely into Meghan and Harry's pockets would soon dry up, and they would come to understand that there's nothing coming their way, and they are no longer living in the promised land. If Harry turned out to be the father of the children, I suspect that William would fight to get the kids back to the UK for Harry, and it would be quite a fight, I'm sure. I mean, between Harry's drug abuse and his mental health problems and Meghan's past of prostitution and porn work and who knows what else, I could believe that an American judge would grant custody to William and Catherine because, in the US court system, judges rule by what they refer to as the best interest of the child. And if the father and mother are unfit parents, then they'll look to other family members to take over. And since there is such a big extended family, such a loving, wonderful family, I wouldn't be shocked if a judge decided to give custody of the kids to the royal family. But if the kids do exist, I'm sure they're going to be grown-ups when William finally becomes king. So at this point in time, it's really a moot point. But this is what I believe William would do if he's king when they're still minors, and they actually do belong to Harry, of course. And I'm sure William would force Harry to live on a very strict budget, and he would make somebody else handle the finances. He'd probably allow Harry some kind of monthly stipend instead of a yearly allowance. There wouldn't be any lump sums of money going to Harry that he could waste or use to pay for drugs and alcohol. He would probably make Harry get a job, and he would require that Harry be in long-term therapy, and I'm guessing William would probably want to pick the therapist himself. William is also not an evil, mean person, so I don't believe that he would be unnecessarily harsh with Harry, but I think he would be incredibly clear with Harry about how things were going to be, and any little fits that Harry threw would be shut down before he got the first wah out of his baby mouth. And as for Meghan Markle, the wannabe queen, well, she would have all her titles taken away, and the kids' titles too. They would be taken off from the line of succession, and Meghan would never be allowed to get close to the royal family ever again. Once Charles passes away, this wouldn't be complicated to do, because Charles is probably the only person in the family who would actually want Harry back in the state that he's in right now. Harry sold his soul to that devil Meghan Markle, so he's going to have to pay the price of penance if he wants to escape royal perdition, which probably would be to never have any contact with Meghan again, and probably not even utter her name again. As the rebellious angel Lucifer was cast out of heaven, I think that King William would cast Meghan out of his kingdom, and he's probably the only person out there who could possibly save Harry from himself. And you, what do you think about Harry's future? Please tell me your opinion below in the comments. Remember to like and share my video with your friends and relatives who would love it too if you preferred it today. And don't be afraid to click the subscribe button to get more updates in the future. Thank you so much for tuning in, have a lovely weekend, and we'll be back to see you all tomorrow.